psoas minor, which is underneath the major, but doesn't go all the way to the leg. So it's not the major connector. And in some of you, that psoas minor is actually, you may only have it on one side now, or you may not have it at all. It's evolving out of us because we needed it when we walked on all fours, or whatever we do on all fours. And we don't need it.
If you want to zoom in,
so it's actually, on some people, it's actually even missing. Yeah, interesting.
Is it ever on both sides?
Yes. Yes. So very good point, because every single muscle has a right and a left side. Okay, so on some of you, that little tiny psoas major, which I believe is, no, it's not the picture right underneath on 63. That's the iliacus, which is actually the biggest muscle of the iliopsoas muscle group, but it also does not connect to the spine. It just goes from the pelvis to the front, and it's a very important hip flexor. So anytime you bring your thigh forward, that's the major muscle that's really, the deepest major muscle that's really
regarding the psoas minor, I just had some visceral massage work done on myself, and they said, I had no idea about a psoas minor, and they said that about 10% of the population actually has one, and they found one on my right side, so I'm not only blessed with one psoas, which I think is enough of a problem, but to have a second one, what problem is?
I think they're saying you don't have two on one side.
No, I just have, this one was prominent on my right side, and I have a tremendous amount of difficulty and problem on this right side of my body, but he found it, and he said it can sometimes become impinged.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if, because I had never heard about this until a week ago, the minor, and that I actually have one.
Yes, and actually I'm not sure about that 10%. I think more people have it still than, we don't know, because we don't dissect it.
But some but why is it, like you said, that we don't really need it now?
Yes, exactly.
Well then what's it doing there?
Well, it takes a long time to evolve. It's an evolution process.
I had that taken out too.
Yes, appendix, like how long from now we may not have one at all. Your tailbone is also.
Yeah, I don't want to take up time with it, but do you have time for questions?
Yeah, exactly.
It was just something that I found, and I'm like, oh great, now how do I deal with this one?
Right. Oh, and we can also talk after. Okay,
thank you.
That'd be great. Yes.
I, for some reason, I'm probably wrong, but I thought, doesn't psoas stand, each letter stand for something?
Well, it can. Somebody may have,
but that's not where the name came from.
No. And in fact, you notice that the P is silent. I remember, I don't know, Sesame Street goes back a long time ago. But they actually had some Alvin Ailey dancer was working with children and teaching them about the psoas. And that's the first time I realized that, yeah, I pronounced the P. All through kinesiology and anatomy, we're pronouncing that P. Because the instructor would say, okay, say psoas. They would do this, and they would move, and they would point to where it is. And it was great. I thought, wouldn't that be great for all of us to do that, not just the kids on Sesame Street in the workshop. So anyway, if you could see, so if you can see that really central core area, the psoas major, because of its connection to lower to upper, is a deep central core muscle. So anytime you hear about core exercise or core awareness, the psoas has to be included. Sometimes it's not, because we tend to think abdominals, through the core. The four major abdominals, which are very important. The deepest abdominal, the transverse abdominis, maybe page 57. Try page 57 in that one. And tell me if I'm right. That's been a long time ago. Is it page 57? The transverse abdominis on the right-hand side. So that's your deepest abdominal core muscle, and it's the waist cincher. So if you ever want that hourglass figure, that's the muscle you have to reach. It's very hard to reach it with exercise. It's easier to keep breathing. So it's through breathing. Yes, it's a breathing muscle. All the abdominals are, but the transverse deepest core muscle that really stabilizes the whole area, along with the psoas major. So in other words, you extract a muscle and talk all about the muscle, but there always has to be, there's always help. One of the most important things about the psoas major is that it's so overworked that we need to learn how to engage the muscles around it so that it doesn't get fatigued all the time. because once it's fatigued, once it's tight, once it's contracted, can cause lead to your lower back pain. So if you know how to release it, we're even over today. A couple different techniques of how to release it, not just stretch and strengthen it. Yeah, relief of lower back pain, maybe relief of one side of the body versus the other, sacroiliac joint, relief of that area. I don't think I've ever met or worked with anybody that had a tight or affected psoas that did not also have an affected sacroiliac joint in the back. So who knows where it comes from first. But all movement comes from the spine, and that's your psoas. Your psoas comes from the spine. So if you could, everyone put your hands on your waist. Whether you're, and even if you're ready to like lay down and stuff, you can do that soon too. Take a big inhale and hold your breath. Exhale up hard. So what do you feel happening at your hands? Anything? Feel any hardness, contraction? Try it again, but don't faint. Don't faint on me. Inhale. Exhale hard. Now cough. Close our mouth. Okay, so that forceful exhale engages your transverse abdominis muscle. So if you're in a core class, if you're doing, sit-ups or Pilates or whatever, unless you can reach that deeper core muscle, so you're not engaging the whole area. Okay, so exhale, no matter what kind of exercise you're doing, exhale deeply. And exhale almost forcefully sometimes. If you're in a push-up position or a plank position from yoga, front support, they call it Pilates, it's all the same position. You just hold that position and start breathing. And on the exhale, really try to, there's that saying of pull your navel towards your spine. That's an image that helps. It's not exactly where you should keep it all the time, but pulling in and up and exhaling to engage that transverse abdominis is what a lot of the deeper breath work that's starting to happen in exercise can affect, is that deeper transverse. And when you do that, your psoas major is also affected because your psoas major and your diaphragm link. So your diaphragm is our big breathing muscle. Yeah, so every time you take an inhale, diaphragm pushes the abdominal wall down, and when you exhale, it releases. So everyone put their hands on your belly and just maybe breathe a little longer and stronger than you usually do, so you can feel that belly. I don't want you to force it, just it'll happen naturally. The diaphragm pushes the belly out, and you inhale, and it relaxes on the exhale. So you're actually slightly engaging the psoas muscle in at least a little bit of activation, not really a contraction, but you're reaching it through that diaphragm and psoas connection.
You said earlier there were 3 different kinds of contractions.
Yes. Want me to write them down? Okay. Yeah. So this is muscle contraction. Muscle contraction, the definition used to be that it meant the shortening of a muscle, and that's not true anymore. It hasn't been true for about the last 10 or 15 years, but I still have students constantly telling me, it means shortening the muscle. That's only one of the 3 types, okay? So muscle contraction is the force that a muscle does. It's the force of a muscle or the work of a muscle. And then you have 3 ways it uses that force. So concentric contraction. I'll just abbreviate, if that's okay. Concentric contraction is the contraction that shortens the muscle. Okay, so it's used in a lot of strength work, a lot of sets, repetitions work. Okay, if you're doing bicep curls, you're shortening the bicep. Okay, and then if you're pushing your hand, maybe I better do this on the window. If you're pushing your hand against an immovable force, like a wall or the floor or something, that's an isometric contraction. Okay, so isometric contraction means that there's no length change at all in the muscle. It's just where it is and it's working, but it's not shortening and it's not lengthening. But it is strengthening because it's working. Okay, so there's some modalities and trainers and stuff, they're beginning to work more with isometric contraction as a way to strengthen the muscle, especially in cases where people have been injured. So if I've injured my elbow or my shoulder, because my bicep is connected to both, by articular muscle, meaning it works two joints, and I've injured either one, so movement in that particular joint is not necessarily what I should be doing. Because it's a very acute injury, it just happens, so you don't really want to be moving it. You could still strengthen the muscle by just turning your hand and pressing against the wall and working the muscle so that the muscle doesn't atrophy. Okay? So if I'm just, instead of bicep curls, injuring once again, maybe the joint a little overdone, just pressing your hand against something. You can even, you can do this with all the muscles, almost all the muscles of your body.
And if you just had surgery and they say you're not supposed to exercise, can you do that?
Well, if a physical therapist says okay. I got out of that one, didn't I? Yes, possibly you can do that. Okay, and so there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information in the anatomy of exercise and movement. I wrote that book so that people could understand how their bodies move so that they could help themselves instead of constantly being addicted to sometimes people that don't know what they're doing, even though they say they do. Yeah.
Does the psoas, if it's ever inflamed, bothering, or spasm or whatnot, or tight, does it ever affect the digestive system?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because it lies right by the stomach.
And then what about anything with the ileocecal valve?
The what?
The ileocecal valve?
Not really.
Okay.
Not for that.
But more so with the digestion then?
Yes, exactly. And those organs around it, which is stomach.
Well, ileocecal valve might kind of, I think it feeds somewhat right in that area by the appendix.
Yeah, I haven't done much investigation in that and how it really affects that yet. The third is eccentric contraction. And that's when a muscle lengthens. Okay? So a muscle can lengthen. When you're, let me see if I can use that bicep example again. So I'm shortening, in fact you can do this with me. Have an arm, find your bicep. Yeah, got a bicep right there on the anterior side of the arm. It actually goes past your elbow, and one of the heads of it goes up into two of the heads actually go up into and past your shoulder joint. So the biceps can flex your shoulder, and it can flex your elbow. So yeah, very good. So if you hear that term flex your muscle, you can't flex a muscle. You can flex a joint. You can't flex a muscle. You can only contract a muscle. Yeah, so muscle contraction. So put your hand around your bicep and bend your elbow, because the bicep allows you to flex or bend your elbow. So you'll feel it maybe bulking up a little bit, and it's actually shortening. Okay. So if you turned your hand and put it against a wall or a floor or something, it would just be firm, but it wouldn't be changing in length. Okay, so that's your isometric contraction. And then as you straighten your elbow, even though it's not the muscle that straightens your elbow, it elongates, but it's working. It's still working. So that's your eccentric contraction. There's many different examples of that. The psoas does the same thing. All muscles do the same thing. So the psoas, let's get to the the psoas does movement-wise, and we were at the lumbar spine first. So I said it was mainly a stabilizer at the lumbar spine. They're doing a lot of research right now. They're finding, and in a lot of the older textbooks, they called it a flexor of the spine also, of the lumbar spine. So flexing the lumbar spine is simply, taking your, folding into fetal position is actually the best definition. If you fold into total fetal position, every single joint in my body goes into flexion. So if you don't want to memorize any real medical term about flexion, just remember it's something that makes your body go toward fetal position. It's the easiest way to remember. So I'm flexing my spine. When I go into fetal position at the lumbar area, the old school of thought was that the psoas was a strong lumbar spine flexor. But not totally. You have 5 vertebrae in your lumbar spine, and there's a school of thought that's coming out, and I agree with it. So I'm a little biased here. That the psoas only helps flex the upper part of the lumbar spine. So only like lumbar 1 and 2. It's kind of stabilizing at 3. When we get down to lumbar 4 and 5, it actually can do the reverse. It's its own antagonist muscle. you can actually extend that area. So anytime you're sitting up straight, you're actually engaging the psoas major at the lumbar spine as a stabilizer and a possible extensor on the lower, on those lower. And that's so important because when we sit, a lot of times we don't sit straight, right? We sit at the computer or yeah, I see everyone fixing themselves. So if you can sit and lengthen your lower spine at the same time, that's helping to engage that upper psoas. In Pilates work, if you're on the mat, on machines, whatever, if you're, you know, if you're laying down and do the Pilates 100, which is, you know, this position where you roll up and you start pumping your arms. So right now I'm flexing my upper spine. So yes, the psoas is working at the upper spine, flexing at that lower lumbar spine. It's helping stabilize, stabilize my neutral spine. And then at the hip joint, it's known as a flexor. So if I bring my thighs anterior to my hips, that's hip flexion. Okay? So the psoas major does that, but it's not a strong hip flexor like everyone thought. The entire iliopsoas muscle group is a strong hip flexor, and especially that bigger iliac muscle that on that same page, the bottom picture, that muscle. That's the strongest flexor out of the entire iliopsoas muscle. So no longer do we try to treat the psoas major by doing a lot of hip flexion, but we can isolate the psoas major from the rest of the iliacus muscle group by one very simple thing, and that is that you stabilize your pelvis and then you lift your thigh. So you can do that on the chair. Right now I would say put hands on either side of your chair. If you're on the floor, I'll do what you would do on the floor. Just give yourself some support. Okay, and so everyone try to extend that lumbar spine so you're not collapsing, and just lift a leg. Okay, you've just kind of isolated that psoas major muscle because the iliacus of that iliopsoas major muscle group is working more to help you keep your pelvis stable. So the psoas major works harder. So it's a great way to test the strength of the psoas major. If you're on the floor, lift both legs. I don't know if you can do that while you're on the chair. Change legs if you can't do it on the chair. Okay? And then add weight to the position by straightening your leg. There. That's a great test for the strength of the psoas major. So if you want, I mean, it's not only the psoas major. There's some other core issues maybe there. But it's a great way to isolate the psoas major to see how strong it is. So if it's so hard to straighten your legs, in that position, you might have a weak psoas major muscle. So if you're doing yoga, you would work in boat pose, navasana, whatever. I think that's the fairest grip for it. If you're doing Pilates, in fact, Pilates work can overwork the psoas because there's so much hip flexion and there's so much lumbar stabilization, flexion, and extension going on. So somebody said they're a Pilates person now. Want to come up and help me do so? I think we need a mat for you. Yeah? I'm going to put you on a mat. Are these, is there just a nice flat mat? Could I have one of those flat rolled up mats? Carol's going to show us how you can overwork your psoas major. And she does it every day. First of all, she's just going to warm up a little bit while I talk a little. So, stretching the back. And so when we overwork the psoas muscle, we've added that on top of walking, on top of standing, on top of sitting where the top of the psoas works and the bottom of the psoas doesn't. So once it gets overused and fatigued, that's when we need to release it. So that's what everyone's going to learn to do. soon. But I wanted to use Carol here. I'm going to bring her through the 5 exercises in Pilates that is called the abdominal series, even though all of Pilates is really about the abdominals. She's going to lay down. Now remember, before I get her to work here, remember the psoas can help pull the thigh anterior of the hips. Okay, so that's hip flexion. Can stabilize the lower back, can extend the very lowest part of the back, and flex the very upper part of the lumbar spine. So we're going to bring her into all those positions, and then you'll see how you can almost overwork the psoas if you're not careful. So she's going to take an inhale. Exhale, roll the head up. Good, reach your arms forward. Good, grab your right knee into your chest, extend your left leg, and switch. Inhale, switch, switch. She's so good at this. So her psoas is working everywhere, every little fraction of an inch of the psoas. She's going to hug both knees into her chest and stretch arms out and legs out. Double leg stretch. Circle out, inhale in, exhale out. She's still keeping her spine flexed, which is really working that upper part. And she's flexing, especially when her legs go out, and really isolating the psoas. Hug the knees in. And you need to relax your head up. Such a great example. We didn't even plan it. So flex the feet. She's going to hug the right leg into her chest and then switch for scissors. Switch. She's still in the position that's affecting the entire psoas muscle. Good. She's still breathing, we hope. And inhale. And exhale. She's going to take both legs up, reach her arms forward, and lower the legs just slightly to 45-degree position. You may. She's doing it the hard way. And inhale, lift, elbows wide. Elbows wide makes it harder. Inhale, lift. So look at what that psoas is doing here. Flexing both straight legs, which is a lot of weight for a muscle to pull up. And then she's going to bend your knees in and twist to the right, extend the left leg, and switch. Here we've added some stabilization of that transverse abdominis, and then the oblique abdominal muscles, because the obliques help you rotate your spine. And then she relaxes down and stretches out. And most of the class would go, Okay, so what I would do for her now, because she overworked it, is have her come down on her belly. Yeah. And just hands, she can have her elbows down, her hands underneath her shoulders. And just take a nice little inhale and lift the chest. Not necessarily the head as much as the chest. Good. So now, especially at the front of the hip, remember the psoas is part of that hip flexor group, meaning it's on the front of the hip. It's beginning to lengthen, and as you breathe, it'll also relax. So stretching it out a little bit after so much work is ideal. If you're in a Pilates class or you're a Pilates instructor, insert more stretching for the front of the hips into your Pilates class. Usually when we're all trained, we don't get enough stretches to put. Insert your own. And so thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I think that it would be, let's see, anyone that wants to come out on the floor now and experience a little bit more, they really need to be these mats. Are there many more in the back? Yeah. So instead of the cushions are nice to sit on, but I would like anybody who would like to try some of this release technique to bring a mat out and just lay on your back. That's all you have to do. Just lay on the back. You can do it on the bare floor. I'm sure they have it nice and clean. Okay? Anybody can come and join. You don't need special clothes.
We're bringing some mats.
Oh, good. More mats. Great. And let's see what else we can do. What's some of the series? Do you all want some out? I'll take a mat. Some out? Okay. Another mat. Anybody want one? But yeah. This is interesting. I love all this yeah. This is good, the variety. I don't need everyone symmetrical. This is good. No, I'll get back. Okay, so people in the chair. so deep, it's really hard to palpate it. You can't really touch it. So if you have a massage therapist or a chiropractor, or somebody who, especially a therapist, who believes that you have psoas major inhibition for some reason, they might try to go after it. Now, I have a little bit of bias against that also. And a very good friend of mine, a chiropractor and physical therapist, we talk about this a lot. And his school of thought is that you can reach the psoas major and you can affect it to release by touch and by manipulation. My point about the psoas major is that, remember, it's the instinctive muscle for fight or flight. So as soon as something happens that you contract, maybe like a deep touch on something so painful, the muscle is going to contract. It's not going to release. And it's also very hard to get through, and you can try this because it's your own body, to get through past, you almost have to go past the stomach, past a few muscles, until you can kind of find a deeper spot right underneath, let's see, right underneath one of your hip bones, your ACEs, your anterior superior. You can go under there, you can lift your thigh a little bit, and you might feel, yeah, a little contraction there. That could be your psoas major, but you'd have to go deeper because you probably just got something like your rectus femoris or one of the other hip flexors, because they're more superficial. So you go a little deeper. So think how deep they have to really maneuver to try to affect the muscle. So it's a very dangerous thing to do. So if someone's going to do something like that to you to help release it, I would have a big conversation with them beforehand and find out how effective they've been with it before, you know, and their process and everything, because you can get hurt, not just by sports and, you know, athletic injuries, any other kind of injuries. You can get hurt by manipulation and deep work also, unless they really know what they're doing. So, so you may not have been able to find it, you know, because it's very deep. But I want you to just close your eyes and try to envision the psoas major within your body. So put your hands, and maybe the people on the floor, if you can't get both hands back there, maybe just one hand, along your lower spine. Yeah. So I'll just kind of turn so that you can see where I'm going. Okay. And your top lumbar spine, L1, is almost to the waist. So you might be a little below your waist. Okay. And find kind of the sides of the vertebrae. Yeah. And then close your eyes, because it's best to try to sense where things are with your eyes closed, unless it makes you dizzy. If it makes you dizzy when you're sitting up or standing, then you might want to do something different. But with your hands, it's going to be hard now. You have to envision that your fingers are very deep, and they begin to trace in front of your hip bone. So you're going to have to bring your fingers around the psoas major. Doesn't go around, it goes deep inside, right to the front of the hip, down the pelvis, and then front of the inside of the upper femur, your thigh bone. That's the psoas major. That's how deep. So it's kind of like if I had a sponge, if I had a pelvis, a skeleton, and a femur, and I put a sponge around it from the spine, I could just wrap that sponge all the way around to it. So that's a nice way to envision it. Okay. So now, as you're lying there, just bend your knees, and we're going to keep the feet on the floor, about hip distance apart. And for now, just relax your arms down by your sides. And so you're all kind of in that position anyway, just vertical instead of horizontal. Okay, so that's fine. And then just with your right finger, I want you to find your hip crease. Okay, just your hip crease. So just a touch higher than that. And you can do this with eyes closed or open. Just inhale and lift the right thigh up. And exhale and place it down. And inhale and lift. And exhale and down. Try to stabilize your pelvis while you're doing this. And have your lower back be very neutral. Yeah, just a And then the same thing with your left hand on the left side. So you're feeling something contract there. It could be the tendon, the attachment point of another muscle. We've got a lot of stuff in there. Yeah. Or if you try to dig a little deeper, you might begin to feel something, some little action of the major. Now, only if you feel like you have a stable enough lower back, strong enough lower back and core, should you do the next one. And that is to take both hands. And this is the same for the people in the chair. You can do this in the chair, but we've got to engage that core. So take a deep inhale. And exhale and allow the belly, navel center to go down toward the spine, but then lift up into the wings. And again, inhale. And then exhale. Inhale one more time. On this exhale, deepen that navel center with both legs at the same time. So you add more weight. The femurs, our thigh bones, are the heaviest bones in your body. So we all have heavy thighs. All of us. That's a heavy bone. So when you add both legs together, your psoas major has to work harder to stabilize the lower back as well as flex the hips. Yeah? So it's another way to strengthen. And now, yes. You good? Yes, that could be that sacroiliac too. So don't do both legs together. So yeah, if you feel something going on, do one leg at a time. Don't do both legs.
Should your lower back be flat?
No, great question. Your lower back has an anterior curve, meaning it's curving towards your front, so it's not touching. If you're in neutral position, your own neutral spine, it's probably not touching the mat. And that's not something that you should force yourself to do all the time either, is to try to press that lower back into the floor. Even in Pilates now, in the Pilates 100 and the abdominal series that Carol showed you, no longer are they saying that lower back has to be into the floor. It's really actually caused a lot of problems. They're asking people to engage the muscle, but not have that lower back press. So not compressed, but actually a little relaxed.
You know, it's interesting, following up on that question, I've been in a lot of yoga classes where they say, especially when you're in a chair against a wall or something, they say, get your lower, your back flat against the wall.
Right.
And I'm like trying to do that. And every time I do that, it just, I find that if I have a slight curve in the back, I'm stronger here.
Yes.
And it stays flat.
Great point. So a slight curve in the back is feeling stronger.
Like this, but see, it stays flat. But then when the second I do this, there's not like all of a sudden I get pain going out here, and this lower part goes out. And then I'm like, well, then why are they saying all these yoga classes? And I'm from California, really.
A lot of yoga.
And they're always saying back flat.
Yeah.
And then let's say you go to Pilates class, like now with this that little arch in it.
Yeah.
And your instinct goes, well, that feels better. It's not as point. And so that is the correct position.
Yes.
The neutral spine.
More neutral spine. Yeah. And you'll feel a little bit of length of the lower back, but it doesn't have to be jammed into the floor. You know, and it's the Pilates community has started to correct them because they were the big ones saying push that back into the floor or against the reformers. They started to correct that.
You do get when you do the pelvic tilt and get your back flat, the bulge as the muscles come out.
Yes.
You get when you do that in neutral spine, it's totally flat.
Exactly. Everything works together a little bit better. Yeah. So what's more natural, it feels more natural to you, is really probably the correct thing. I see a hand.
I was just wanting to clarify. She was saying, or question, are your hips tilting forward, your tailbone is coming down, or when your lower back is...
Actually, let's do what we call the pelvic tilt or the pelvic rock, and you can all feel that. So if you're on the floor, you can put your hands on both hips again. People at the chairs, if you stand up, you're going to be able to do this pelvic tilt better. Okay, so you can find this there. So a pelvic tilt, our pelvis can tilt forward, so I'm going to exaggerate that. And this is what gives us our famous sway back position. Right now, my front hip bones, everyone find their front hip bones, are tilting forward. It increases the sway or the anterior curve of the lower back. So a lot of us stand like this, which is a little exaggerated, definitely exaggerated. It's called lordosis. Even though we all, our back has that curve that is called lordosis. This is advanced lordosis right here. I'm just gymnast, whatever. A lot of people have that. And so to get rid of that, we kind of go to what we call the neutral spine, which is just a slight anterior curve. And then to decrease and go the other way in a backward tilt, we end up rounding the lower back. So you can put your hands on the front hip bone and tilt forward. You can do this on the floor too, and tilt backward. When you tilt backward, that lower back is going to go into the mat. So inhale, tilt forward. Exhale, tilt back. It's a great exercise. Inhale, tilt forward, but not to overdo. Exhale, tilt forward. It's also engaging the psoas muscle, especially, when we end up tilting forward. Look what happens. If I overdo that, I'm going into hip flexion. So that's what the psoas does at the hip. Okay, stabilizing the lower back, and you're going into a little flexion, top of the psoas muscle at the top of the lumbar spine.
This is when it's okay to have your back flat in this kind of exercise.
Exactly.
When you're doing the abdominal.
Exactly. Yes, very good. Another question? Yes.
So when I'm lying here, I feel when I'm eating this, where my hips are engaging the floor. I feel solidly that my left is there.
Okay, so she's explaining an imbalance, which we all have in different places. And she's saying one hip feels, the back hip feels heavier, touching the floor, and the other one is looser. Yeah, and that could be for many different reasons. It could be in the spinal alignment, a little bit of curvature, maybe a lateral curvature of the spine. It could be your sacroiliac joint. So our sacroiliac joint is where our big iliac bone meets our sacrum. And it's a joint that doesn't contract concentrically, isometrically, and eccentrically. It shifts. It's called a gliding joint. Okay? So when that shift has happened a little too much, it ends up getting a little aggravated. You can actually shift your hip and hop off. And if you're a woman who has had children, remember ligaments, especially those sacroiliac ligaments with our hormone relaxin, actually during childbirth relaxes and stretches. But ligaments do not pop back. Ligaments aren't like rubber bands and they just pop back. Once the ligament is overstretched or stretched, it stays there. It doesn't come back. So if you have overstretched that area, that's an area that needs attention. That's an area that needs to be looked at, because there are exercises to kind of relieve the muscles around that area, like the piriformis that comes across right at the top of the hip that goes to the femur. Okay? So not to the spine. Remember, the psoas major is the only one that goes to the spine and around all this whole area. So let's do something that might help that center itself a little bit. Everybody, whoops. Okay. Is that help? And you can do this sitting in a chair if you've got the flexibility. If not, don't do it. And that is cross your right ankle over your left knee. Okay? So we won't have room to put arms out. So do the arms by your sides or arms like this if you have the room, just to help stabilize your shoulders. Yeah. And so you guys can just hold on to your chairs. They're all ready. They're ready. Just so and so what the people that are sitting are going to do is you're going to bend forward. So you're going to be stretching the back, the sacroiliac area. Don't overstretch. The ones on the floor, just take your right leg over and your hips over to your left. You might rest the knee on or foot on somebody else. But that's okay. You can introduce yourself. And just inhale and exhale. And you're really stretching out your right sacroiliac area. Now everyone come back up, people on the floor, switch legs. And you can even just hold on to the chairs. When you switch legs, people in the chairs bend forward. You're going to feel your left outside hip and sacroiliac stretching a little bit. Yeah. So if we sometimes stretch muscles around that area, like the piriformis, and maybe the psoas muscle, although this isn't a great psoas stretch, this is a piriformis stretch. Maybe you release the cramping and the tightness of the muscle, which therefore releases the nerves, especially the sciatic nerve that goes underneath the piriformis muscle. You're having pain shooting down your legs and stuff, and you've got a little condition called sciatica. And you're trying to release that by exercise and not by manipulation. That's very good. He's doing great back there, breathing. So come back to center. Okay, we did both sides. I want you to have your feet now, and this will not be possible for the people in the chair, unless I think chairs will start falling over. So have your hands down by your side, feet hip distance apart. So we showed you some strengthening of that psoas muscle. We're going to begin to stretch it. So take a deep inhale. Exhale, navel to spine, and roll the hips right up off the floor, up to the ceiling. So you're trying to lengthen the front of the hip. That's going to be a psoas stretcher. Okay? Psoas stretcher. So can you breathe while you're up there? Find yourself a comfortable position while you're up there. Trust your arms, your shoulder blades, your feet to be your foundation, even your head. Inhale, exhale. So we can stretch the psoas muscle this way. If anyone wants to take this farther, you can walk your feet underneath you a little bit more and begin to contract the psoas muscle by lifting the right leg up to the ceiling. Get flexion. Ta-da, there you are. Put that leg down. And with the other leg, so left psoas, hip flexion. Very good, back down. Take an inhale, push your hips a little higher. Exhale, just roll down nice and easy through the spine. Very nice. And then everyone roll to one side and just see if you can come up to all four position. So once again, something that you just have to watch or join us either way. So that's table position. Hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. Very nice. So we can actually do a pelvic tilt in this position. Pelvic tilt enhance the circulation in the whole core and lower back. Stretch and strengthen. So you can use a cat and dog from yoga to do that, but it's actually a pelvic tilt. So you're going to drop your tailbone and drop your head and pull up. Pull up the core, inhale. Now exhale, stay there. Exhale, stay there and deepen the core more. And then go into what we call dog or cow, which is lifting your tailbone all the way up to the spine. The spine kind of sags a little, goes into a little hyperextension and lifting the head. Exhale and go into your round back. Really pulling the core up, up, up. Very nice. Feel those shoulder blades separating. Exhale, let the belly drop a little, but still keep it slightly engaged. Lift your head and lift your tailbone. Good. And come back to neutral spine. So whenever you have feels like a flatter back, we still engage the core slightly to support the lower spine. And when you engage the core, you're engaging your psoas muscles. Relax the shoulders. That's a little too much. Good. So if your wrists are hurting, you can go to fists. Okay, we're just going to sit back slightly so that your hips come towards your heels, almost like a child's pose, but not all the way. And then inhale, come up, walk your hands slightly forward, lower your pelvis toward the mat, stay on your knees, lower your pelvis toward the mat, and yep, there we go. Your arms support you, so if your arms are not strong enough, you have an injury, don't do this. And then exhale and sit back again. I want you to play back with that, going forward and back. Inhale as you go forward, and exhale as you come back. Good. So hip flexion, the psoas is working at the hip. And then when you go forward, it's stretching at the hip, but please engage the belly up toward the spine to protect that lower back when you go forward.
How far can you, how much can you
Go forward.
your lower back? Yeah.
Wherever it's telling you you've gone too far, you stop. And I think for you, if you had more mat room, you'd walk your hands farther and you might be able to go farther. And so now everyone just sit back on your heels in child's pose. If that's not comfortable, then you would roll to your side and just do a fetal position. And relax. So this is just a little relaxing position. Right now we're releasing the psoas, especially at the lumbar spine.
This is a psoas release.
Pardon?
This is a psoas.
Yeah, up at the lumbar spine. Because most of you aren't in too much of a flex position. Yeah, so just breathe into the lower back. When you exhale, try to relax more. And if you're in the chair, you can actually fold into that position. So separate your knees a little bit and just let your head hang. You can use the chair for support. You can hold on to. Good. Breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Everyone try to retract your shoulders away from those knees. Inhale. Exhale, try to relax more. The more you can relax, the more you can release. Tension, muscle contraction. So we're trying to release a little bit of the muscle contraction the psoas major might be doing. And then just walk your hands in and roll up slow from the bottom of the spine. Head is the last thing that comes up. Do that nice extended spine that the psoas major helps you hold, that position. Good. And then people that are on the floor, flip back over onto your backs. And we'll do the all-time favorite psoas release. Called the constructive rest position. How many of you have heard of that? Constructive rest position? One. Of course, our Pilates teacher. Very good. You know, a lot of Pilates teachers are starting to have students walk into class and get into that position so that you can release the psoas first.
That's good.
Yeah. So for anybody who's doing any kind of a workout or something, anyone that's not even doing that, it's called the constructive rest position because it's a position where your skeleton begins to take over and your muscles release. So if I can put you all in the right position, we're going to get to a point where not only the psoas releases, but most of the muscles in your body. So it's a restful position, but it's a constructive position because your skeleton becomes aligned. So if any of you would like to join us and try that, all it is imagery, and the position for the knees is knees bent, feet flat on the floor, where it's comfortable. And then sometimes it's not comfortable, and we need a little bit of help resting our thighs. So the best way to do that is to separate your feet a little bit and pigeon toe them a little, and then let your thighs rest against each other. Good. So if that doesn't feel comfortable, you can go back to just good distance apart, but let's try it this way. And so feel that because your knees are resting against each other, that your thigh muscles begin to work less. Which means down into the inside of the femur, your thigh bone, the psoas muscle begins to release a little bit. But I'm going to give you much more imagery to help you release your whole body. Okay. So arm-wise, there's two positions. The most famous one in constructive rest is to cross your arms at your elbows and let your hands hang to the side. Now for some people, because you have a large rib cage or a large chest or something, this may not feel comfortable. So if it doesn't, the other position is just to let your arms slide to the side and to close your eyes. So in any kind of rest position, keeping the eyes closed will just help us pay attention more to what's going on inside of us instead of outside of us. So like I said, it's hard to do this in a chair, so you can watch, you can just try the image a little bit, remember from home. The whole thing is written in the vital psoas muscle book. It's not out until probably this summer. And also in this anatomy of exercise and movement. Now, I'm going to give you an energy, little energy work here. So as you inhale, I want you to think of an energy line. Think of it as traveling down your spine, from the base of the skull down the spine. When you exhale, just relax. So with the eyes closed, can you envision, it might help you to envision a color traveling down your spine, or a warmth or a light traveling down your spine. When you exhale, just relax. So then we're going to, on the exhale, add an imaginary energy line coming up the front of the body. So think of an energy line on the inhale traveling down the spine. And then that line comes between the legs up through to the front of the body on the exhale. So just thinking this will help it to happen, and your muscles will begin to release a little more because your skeleton begins to do more of the work. It's a great position to do in the morning or at night to make you more restful for about 10 minutes. So as you inhale, the line travels down the spine. As you exhale, travels up the front of the body. It's as if you had a jacket on and you're pulling the zipper up. Relaxing those arms. If the arms do not feel relaxed, and even the fingers relaxed, let them slide to the side. energy line also helps you let the rib cage spread out, back of the mat, relax in the front of the body. Let your pelvis feel heavy into the floor. It's a heavy bone structure, just let it go. So we're going to think down to that pelvis and the thighs. I want you to envision or imagine the top of the knees and a little waterfall, slight waterfall, coming, just trickling down the thighs into the hip sockets. And maybe a nice little pool of water in those hip sockets, because they are deep sockets where the femur rests. So the femur is resting in a nice, cool body of water, like a well. So we begin to feel a little juicier, yeah, a little more lubricated. Lubricated us, but also rest, where everything can circulate. So resting the thighs into the hip sockets, thinking of a waterfall coming down the thighs. Cooling water. Cooling water. Or maybe you'd like warm water today. Go back to that energy line coming down the spine up the front of the body. So you're checking the upper torso, making sure it's still relaxed. Weight of the head is heavy into the floor. Head weighs at least 15 pounds on most people, maybe 20. Just let it go. 8 to 20. Yes, so it could be less, depending on the person. And now think of a waterfall at the knees and traveling down the shins, the front of the shins to the feet with pools of water that the feet are soaking in. Just stay with that imagery and breathe. Releasing and relaxing ourselves, the more we're going to be able to cope with our busy schedules, the crazy world around us. So give yourself a gift every day of either constructive rest position, and see if that doesn't help treat some of the tightness in the hips or the lower back. Really relieve the lower back. Because right now they're not forcing their backs into the mat at all. Yeah, it's probably a slight little curve off the mat. Not forcing anything. Nothing serious. So the hard part is coming out of it because you're going to stay there. I think there's a workshop in about 10 minutes, otherwise I'd let you. But with your eyes closed, roll onto your right sides into fetal position. And we're going to do one last little nice thing for the psoas. Now, the psoas major was one of the first muscles developed as a fetus. The spine develops first. So that's what happens usually. And that one of the first muscles that grows from the spine is the psoas major. So in fetal position, can we kind of take our minds back into fetalness? Just relaxing, closing your eyes. Resting your head on your arm if that feels good, or a blanket or a cushion or whatever. Okay. And we're going to do what I call the Stoic Rock. So it's a slight little gentle rock of the hips side to side. And as you do this, try to see if you can just kind of get in touch with your own psoas, and then take a break and relax. And then when you feel the urge, do that again. You might not feel the urge, but it's a real nice nurturing feeling to kind of rock yourself in fetal position, and you're actually helping to identify with your own psoas muscle that, remember, connects not only your upper body to your lower body, but also connects you to your emotional nerve center, your solar plexus, yeah, which is not so much as an anatomical area as it is a nerves and energy center.
Looking down and back and forth.
Okay, so I'll do it for you. You can stop. We'll nurture and then stop. Yeah. See, I'm feeling a little more relaxed now.
And it's
like,
like,
oh,
either side,
thank
either
you.
side. Because I have ones on my right side, when I
Yes.
have ones on my right side, it actually felt heavy enough that it was actually.
So that's fine. So switch to the other side. Yeah, and yeah, you can do this on the left side also. I just had everyone go to one side so we kind of wouldn't crash and face each other. So, oh, both sides would be nice, yes.
Beautiful question. Is this your Uzabanda?
Ulabanda, well, it's slightly that. So, and we don't have time to get into the bonds from yoga, but a mula bond, which is trying to engage your pelvic floor, and the ones in the chair can do this. It's trying to, if you should feel like you're trying to pull your sit bones together, and you'll feel things pull up at the very lower pelvic floor. Okay, that's the beginning of a mula bond that's supposed to bring energy up your spine and out through the universe, and that's a whole nother workshop. I thank you all very much.